Get free tech advice for your business from O2 Gurus. Search O2 Business for more. Hey guys, welcome to BTech. It's Basil here with a Samsung Galaxy Note 4 in my left hand and a Sony Xperia Z3 in my right. The Sony Xperia Z3 is one of those smartphones you guys just can't get enough of. And indeed, it is very good. It packs a massive battery. It's got great spec. It's got waterproofing in a very, very slender, good looking design. And generally speaking, we can completely see why you guys love it. The Samsung Galaxy Note 4 though is the most capable Android phone on paper with its Qualcomm Snapdragon 805 processor, a Quad HD display, and of course you've got that S Pen, which supports some very, very cool new functionality, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But how do they size up against one another? Well, starting on that note with size, we can put the Sony Xperia Z3 in front of the Note 4, and you can see it's a shorter device and a narrower device. 5.2-inch screen versus a 5.7-inch screen though. That is expected. It doesn't feel quite as secure in the hand. The rounded edges are a tad more slippery than those of the Note 4. Both have metal frames, both feel very, very rich. The glass backing on the Sony Xperia Z3 really does sit very nicely in the hand, but it attracts fingerprints like nobody's business. The more angular corners as well are also a little bit less forgiving, but they're by no means sharp. In fact, they have a rubberized kind of finish to them so that if the phone drops on its corner, it won't scuff as badly as metal. One thing we're not confident about though is the scuff factor on the Samsung Galaxy Note 4. We've got the white version and you can see it looks like a white painted metal. The chamfered edges do look very, very rich, adding a glint, and the matte finish on the painted element does give it a lot of extra grip over other devices. So you can't imagine dropping it too easily, but we're not confident that it won't scratch through silver. If we were to take a look at how each feels in the hand, as you can see, they both are very, very manageable for me. I'm 6'4", though we'll definitely recommend you get them in your hands before you buy them because both are very large devices. As for key design elements, 5.7-inch display, front-facing camera, home button which has a fingerprint scanner surrounding it. You've got a multitask capacitive button to the left hand side, a back button on the right hand side. On the right hand side of the actual phone itself, you can see, aside from those beautifully chamfered edges and the contouring up top and bottom, that power button down at the base, S Pen dock, S Pen 2048 levels of pressure sensitivity, which is double that of its predecessor. You've also got two microphones either side of the micro USB connector. The microphones are for stereo audio recording. There's another one up at the top, as you can see. And the micro USB connector is regular micro USB, not micro USB 3, although it does support MHL 3.0, which is going to give you very nice high resolution output. You can also see volume rockers to the left. Up at the top, in addition to that mic, you've got the 3.5mm jack and an infrared blaster. On the flip side, removable back cover, available in a range of colors. You can see under the hood, you've got that 3220 milliamp battery, micro SIM slot, and a micro SD card slot. You've also got 32 gig internal memory on here, and that's a 16 megapixel camera complete with optical image stabilization. It's worth also noting that there is a heart rate monitor to the left-hand side of that flash right there, or to the right-hand side even. Loudspeaker at the base. So that's the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 in a nutshell design-wise. As we said, the premium, which is great coming from Samsung. Really happy since the Galaxy Alpha that the design has been revised like that. On the Xperia Z3, you've got stereo front-facing speakers, an area this thing will almost definitely trump the Note 4. Front-facing camera, 5.2-inch Full HD display. You've also got on-screen buttons as opposed to capacitive buttons. To the right-hand side, you've got a flap. This houses the micro or nano SIM slot as well as a micro SD card slot. 16 gig internal memory if you're in the UK. If you're in the US on T-Mobile, I think it's Verizon actually, then you're going to get 32 gig on yours. You've also got a power button, volume rocker, and a lovely two-stage camera button, which feels very nice. Down at the base, no buttons, just a beautifully smooth metal edge, lanyard connected to the left-hand side, magnetic dock connector for charging without having to do this. Unflap the flap underneath which sits the micro USB port. Up at the top is a 3.5mm headphone jack and microphone. You've got stereo audio recording on this too. Flip side, 20.7 megapixel rear-facing camera and flash, NFC contact point and Sony insignia, fingerprint-loving glass back, but still feels very rich in the hand. So that's how the designs stack up against one another, but how do the screens stack up against one another? 5.7 inches versus 5.2 inches, so instantly the Note 4 is going to be bigger. AMOLED versus IPS, so the AMOLED will have deeper blacks. Will it have more saturated colors? Not sure about that. Sony ups the saturation on their phones so much. It actually looks like it's giving the AMOLED display on the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 a run for its money in that department. But definitely the Note 4 has got deeper blacks, and it looks like a brighter, or dare we say less reflective display. We can flip them both to max brightness. Actually, you know what? They look pretty much like for like in terms of sheer brightness. The Sony Xperia Z3 by default has cooler hues to it. We can open up our settings and you can see that you can actually control the display properties on the Xperia Z3 and indeed the Note 4 in a lot of ways. If we jump into display right here, you can see on the Xperia Z3 you actually have complete control over white balance. So if we have white balance right there tapped, we can select the RGB. It's maybe a little bit less manual on the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, but if we jump through to screen mode, we've got it set to adaptive display. We can have it set to AMOLED Cinema, AMOLED Photo, and Basic. So we can cancel that, jump out of that. In default though, like we said, the Xperia Z3 comes across as being cooler than the Note 4, and the Note 4 deeper blacks. One thing we haven't spoken about, resolution, and that means sharpness. So we can bring them right into frame, open up the applications tray so we've got something maybe a little bit more comparable. And you can see a sharp pixel count of 424 on the Sony Xperia Z3 as opposed to 515 on the Samsung Galaxy Note 4. So similar kinds of sharpnesses. Only people with brilliant eyesight or brilliant glasses will be able to tell the difference. The difference will come through when you're reading books, for example. Not so much with photos. Both will provide imperceptible pixels in photos and movies. As far as viewing angles go, they both rock. The Galaxy Note 4 has less integrity across viewing angles, so the colors maybe change a little bit, which we come to expect from AMOLEDs, but head on, they really do look very, very good indeed. Inside those screens, it is Android across both, 4.4. You can see the Samsung Galaxy Note and Sony Xperia Z3 have revised versions thanks to their manufacturers. Samsung's is TouchWiz. We can see home screen, we can see widgets, we can see shortcuts, and we can also see folders as well. To the left-hand side, we've got Flipboard briefing. This is like My Magazine UX, but it is actually a little bit better. It's smoother, it doesn't slow everything down quite as much. And of course, like with My Magazine UX, you can very easily flip that thing off. You've got pull-down notification tray with one finger, pull down quick toggles with two fingers, like so, and the application tray itself. You can't swap out themes, but you can change transition effects on the Galaxy Note. You can swap out themes very, very easily on the Sony Xperia Z3. If we pinch out, we get a very similar kind of overview right there. To the left-hand side, there is no Flipboard briefing or any other kind of integrator of social media content, etc. One finger pull-down notifications, two finger pull-downs, you've got quick toggles right there, and the applications tray in much the same way can be organized into folders and applications. On the left-hand side though, you do have this very useful bar that allows you to mass uninstall stuff, and you can also do stuff like access your Google Play Store or Sony Select Store and browse apps by most used and when you install them in alphabetical, etc. Jumping out of that, we didn't talk about themes, and we can jump into the themes tab now. And you can see we can actually swap out the whole look and feel of our phone very, very easily by just tapping through on Xperia, press apply theme, give it a second to swap out that theme. And you can see it's changed the whole look and feel of our phone right there with a nice live wallpaper. We can then pinch out again and tap through on themes. A lot of you guys have been asking about this tri-flat theme. You can install that from the Google Play Store on any Xperia device, and it will very, very nicely change the whole look and feel of your phone to a very, very simple polygonal kind of look, which looks great, and it will also swap out the wallpaper accordingly, as you can see. So that's how they stack up in terms of the user interfaces. Both are very, very smooth. We haven't experienced slowdown through either, which is great because TouchWiz has had a history of slowing down. The Sony Xperia Z3 UI is a lot simpler. We're going to talk about the S Pen integration now, and that will be an area that maybe sets this thing apart for anyone who wants to geek out beyond all control. Firstly, when you pull out the S Pen, you can see Action Memo, Smart Select, Image Clip, and Screen Write. If we Action Memo, we can, for example, write, do not show this again, we can write a name, so John. And we can write 0209673. So we can then grab all that text, we can make it a contact, and then it's going to save John and throw the number in the mobile section. So that's very smart. We can cancel that, discard, and we can get rid of that note by tapping on it and pressing X and discarding it. Next, we can pull up that menu again by hovering over the screen and pressing the button on the S Pen. We can do Smart Select. Smart Select is incredibly cool. We can open up an application that was open, so say even the settings. If we want to share some text, we can press Smart Select. We can select data usage, and we can convert that to text. Once we've done that, we can share that out to a message, and you can see data usage, and it'll do that with a big block of text, so it's really nice, save you having to write stuff out that's maybe saved as an image. So optical character recognition at its best right there. Other stuff you can do, plenty of other stuff. You can clip an image, you can write over your whole screen, and you can also do something very cool in S Note. Take a picture. If we take the Sony logo, you'll notice we positioned the camera right there. Let's try and get it over the top. Take that shot. And we can crop in on that now. Like so. Press the tick button. And it has made it an editable selection. So press the tick again. Once it throws that into S Note, we can then convert it to an editable selection where we can even do stuff like, if we were to select the whole thing, change the stroke, type, etc. So we could make Sony, for example, nice bright red. Change the stroke thickness, jump out of that, and there you go. So it's a little bit of fun. You can also do some very cool stuff with that, which is maybe a little bit more graphic, maybe a little bit more useful if you are a creative type person. Like we said as well, 2048 levels of pressure sensitivity work brilliantly with Autodesk's Sketchbook application and Photoshop Touch. So hopefully that has given you an insight as to how the Galaxy Note UI stacks up against the simpler Sony Xperia Z3 user interface. As far as multimedia goes, the cameras are also very different. 20.7 megapixels versus 16 megapixels. Optical image stabilization versus digital image stabilization. They'll both record 4K video very well. We uploaded samples of both, so you can check them out. The screens are going to be perfect for multimedia, though the Sony Xperia Z3s will be better in terms of the audio, given the fact you've got those front-facing speakers. As for the performance across games, they will fly. Qualcomm Snapdragon 805 processor clocked at 2.7 GHz versus a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 processor clocked at 2.5 GHz. 3 GB of RAM across both. No game will be too much for these to handle. In terms of connectivity, Cat 6 LTE, which is 300 Mbps versus Cat 4 LTE, which is 150. Wi-Fi Direct, Bluetooth 4.0, and NFC in the standard NFC styling. You can just tap for things like mobile payments and also to share files as well as pair with Bluetooth devices. Now the last point is battery. 30 to 20 milliamps on the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 versus 3100 on the Sony Xperia Z3. The Xperia Z3 therefore should perform a little bit better on paper given the fact the screen is a fair bit smaller. That said, both are very, very good in terms of the actual number, and you can also replace the battery on the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 so you can carry spares with you if you so choose. Hopefully that's covered all of the basic differences and indeed some not so basic differences between the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 and the Sony Xperia Z3. If you've got any questions about either of the phones, fire them in the comments section below. If you like the video, click like, and if you like BTech in general, subscribe. That's how you're going to stay up to date with all of our latest content. Thanks for watching.